All right, guys, so today we're going to start talking about web design and get into the project 3. I'm super excited about this. So there's things that we need to consider, the differences between web and print. What kinds of differences do you guys?
Screen resolution.
Screen resolution, right? Okay. Yeah, DPI, 72 DPI. RGB versus CMYK. Okay, cool. All right, so we're going to talk about that next, right? So print, right, we deal with inches for the most part, unless we're somewhere else in the world. CMYK, there are lots of different sizes, but they're pretty set, right? It gives you a very consistent output in that, CMYK across printers are pretty consistent. There's some slight variations, but not like we see in screens. Usually there's like just one way to set up your files. Technology independent. Yeah, you can do any sort of, use it on any sort of computer. You can set stuff up, send it to the printer. Printer does their own thing. Readability and limited audience is based off of like how many items get printed, right? Versus web. In web, we deal with pixels. We deal with red, green, blue values. It says fewer sizes, but I don't think that that's quite correct because in responsive design, we talk about how there's like over 880 different screen sizes. There's some slight variations on screen sizes. But for our purposes, we're not going down the responsive road just yet. I will mention it as kind of a sidebar, but we're not going down the responsive road. Okay. Inconsistent output is because monitors have different setups, have different values. So like even just my home setup, I have 3 monitors. I have two monitors and my laptop. All 3 screens look different. They all have different color values. They all look different, and it's just based off of the nature of the screen. So lots of different ways to set up your files in web development. We're going to try to maintain a specific file naming convention and consistency. Kind of as you guys progress through this class, I'm getting more and more specific, okay? So be aware of that. Technology dependent, well, we need computers. We need the pocket computers that we call your phones. We need tablets. Limited readability can be like your environment can impact how readable something is. So have you ever been out on a bright day and you can't read your phone screen? Well, that's a readability issue. Also, like just having things that are long can be problematic. People kind of like lose attention. So, and then huge audience, right? You got the whole world. Anybody who's connected to the internet can see what you've made. So that's the big distinction between these two things. All right. Tiziana in her original presentation had a big long thing about how print is greener. It is. Apparently, the servers that hold all the information that's in the internet takes up 10% of the world's power. So that's an awful lot of energy, right? 10%. I mean, considering like we have schools and we have hospitals and we have even power plants need power, still. And one of the things that she mentioned is that print is greener also because it's a one-time usage. It's, as opposed to like constantly every day having to run, right, and use power. So direct mail apparently generates a large response. So if you get a catalog, for example, catalogs, apparently people really like catalogs, and they generate more sales than websites, interestingly enough. That kind of surprises me. But that's the thing. So catalogs are the second best response generators. Cool. Things to know, though, is that print is getting more interactive. We have QR codes now, right? We can use our phone and click on snap a QR code, and it takes us to some kind of a web page. Restaurants were doing this a lot, where they'd have a QR code for their menu, and you take that picture and you go visit their menu online. I've seen this actually work, and I've seen it not work. So it can be a little iffy. I think it's just getting better and better and better as time progresses. Apparently QR codes were created in Japan, and they can contain up to 7,000 characters. It's often seen as a bridge between print and web, just like I mentioned. You can use a QR code and it takes you to a web page. And you can use them to enhance your information delivery. All right. So here's an example for Fuddruckers. Here's an example for Heinz. All right. So web design has its own set of unique challenges and opportunities. We have this thing called usability and user experience. So what do you guys think usability is? Yeah, how easy it is to use something, exactly. And then what do you think user experience is? Well, user experience is like the whole of your experience on this website. So that would include things like, how easy is it to navigate? How easy is it to find information? How do I feel about this website? Does it have a good look and feel? Does it appeal to my aesthetic? Okay, that's part of user experience. Okay, there's some inconsistency. As I mentioned in responsive design, there's over 880 different sizes of screens. So that kind of makes things a little weird, right? You're used to things being set, and we're not going to worry about responsive, like I said, but it's something to be aware of. Intangible design, when you print something out, it's right there in front of you and it's tangible. You can see it, you can feel it, you can touch it, you can smell it, right? It's got real sensory appeal. But web pages, I mean, you look at them and that's all you get, really. You can capture audience attention with them, just kind of based off of colors and other things like that. You can do that with print. File size, you want to make sure that your file sizes, and that's like your bits, your Ks, your Ms, your, hopefully not Gs. Those need to be small, right? We want to try to make sure that they're small because, everybody has a data plan, right? Even if it's unlimited, there's, something going on back here. We want to make sure that we're responsible with our file sizes, that they're not huge, right? So that we don't have people download stuff. And, when something's big, it takes longer to download, it takes longer to upload, right? We want to make sure that our file sizes are small in web. Changing technology. Stuff happens all the time with web stuff. While there's kind of a core principles with web, and there's kind of a core programming stuff with web, there's new things that are being developed all the time. And in fact, in JavaScript, there's a meme, the World War Z picture of the zombies crawling up the wall and they're like stacking up on top of each other. And the meme says, JavaScript developers, when a new framework comes out, everybody's basically scrambling to go get the new framework. So, there's new stuff happening all the time. So, things change, but yet there's still kind of a base core principle stuff. Maintenance, websites require maintenance. Print's a one-time thing. And then accessibility would be things like, how easy is it to get to the website? You have to kind of consider people that may have physical challenges, maybe some sight challenges. I know, like, my grandmother suffered from macular degeneration, so she needed to use a screen reader. So these are things that you have to kind of think about and be aware of. All right. So see, here's all these screen sizes. So when we talk about interface, we want to anticipate the user's needs. So, how am I going to get from point A to point B in this website? What kinds of things is the user going to need, directly on whatever page that they land on, right? A navigation is one of those things that ties a website together. So that, okay, I can navigate from this page, even though maybe I've Googled something and I've ended up on a page that's not the home page, I can go back to the home page. That's not a problem. And then I can find stuff from there, or I can find stuff directly from this page that I've landed on. You want to involve your customers from the beginning. So Tiziana teaches a class in user experience, and that's kind of her whole bailiwick. She kind of goes through this process and talk about customers and users, essentially, and how you want to definitely think about them from the start. Making design elements that are easy and understand to use. There's like a number of different conventions, so you probably want to use those because people are used to them. That way they don't have to learn a whole new thing. Making your work accessible. Again, this is for people who are challenged to interact with the internet for a number of different reasons. Beautiful interface is functional, right? And then making flexible designs and elements. So that would be things that are potentially scalable if you're doing responsive design. Okay. There is a link to an article on this particular slide. And just kind of a summation of this slide is user interface is just a way for us to interact with a machine. With a car, the steering wheel is an interface, if you think about it, right? It's a way for us to interact with the machine to tell it what we want it to do. And then with a website, the menus and other clickable items are an interface. And an interface should be simple, elegant, and intuitive. This is kind of the part of user experience, right? Because have you ever been on a website where you click on a button and you expected to go one place and you went somewhere else? That's bad user experience and bad design. Okay. All right. This slide also has a link to an article. In fact, I believe it's this article. Too long, didn't read. Overall, this article says you want to provide relevant content. You want to provide a conversational tone. You want to provide scannable content. That would be if I'm scanning through this article and I'm looking for something in specific, I should be able to see it. Short sentences, one idea per paragraph, good headlines being hey, this is all about Photoshop workflows and shortcuts for digital artists. So, that tells you kind of what the article is about. And using short lists of bullet points and things like that. We want to put conclusions at the beginning with meaningful headlines. And using lists not more than 7 or 8 items, and any kind of subheading inside to kind of just help us organize content and keep people in the flow of what's going on with our information. Okay. So desktop screen resolution. 97% of users have a screen resolution of 1024 by 768 or higher. Many fixed designs are set 960 pixels wide. Works great with any grid because you can divide it by 12 and others. We'll get into grids tomorrow. We can use a centered layout, and we do need to kind of think about what is the first thing that users see in our screen. Anything below that is what's called below the fold. It comes from print, as you guys should know. So we want to focus on what's above the fold, right? There's another article here for the importance of the fold. It's in the speaker notes. Right, this part right here is what the user first sees when it comes to the web page, whatever web page it is. So we want to think about that. Okay. So here we can see an example of a mobile website versus a newspaper. There's our above the fold. Crap. You guys know what crap is, right? All right. What does the C stand for? Contrast, right. What does the R stand for? Repetition, right. What does the A stand for? Anybody? Alignment, good. And what does the P stand for? Proximity, exactly. All right. There we are. Want to make sure you guys knew this stuff. Because these are important things to know, right? And even in web design, we talk about these things in print, but even in web design, this is important because it's just kind of a good design principle. So here we've got some grids. So this is what the page looks like. And then when you overlay a grid on it, this is what this one looks like. And this is a 16 column grid. So you'll see like 12 column grids and 16 column grids. I think I prefer 12 anyway. And this is from the site 960.gs. Has downloadable grids, but you can also make your own. So you can make your grid, but you don't have to make it symmetrical, right? So the nice thing about these sorts of things is that you can, make like, do the rule of threes, right? You can have 3, 3, 3, right? You can have all kinds of different setups. This is why I like a 12 column grid, because you can divide by 3, you can divide by 4, you can divide by 6, you can divide by 2. So that kind of gives you an idea of why grids are useful. Here we go. Here's another one. This is a 12 column grid, which I far prefer. So you can see here we've got divisible by 3, divisible by 6. So also, we are going to be using Google Fonts. All the demos and stuff like that are going to be in Photoshop. There's no InDesign at this point. It's probably going to be easier to do. Even do the wireframe. There's tons of wireframe software out there, but it might be easier just to do them straight into Photoshop. You'll want to go to Google Fonts and get Google Fonts. Google Fonts are licensed for the web. They're completely, easy to access. Make sure you download them. So there's this book, Don't Make Me Think by Steve Krug. It is a good book for rules on usability. And that's like the number one thing, right? You don't want to have to make the user struggle going through your website. You want to make sure that that they can just like, oh, I need this, click. I need this, click. So you want to like cut down the number of clicks as much as you can. You want to make things really simple and straightforward. Okay. So we have two different ways of thinking as human beings. A lot of us, or a lot of our day is kind of like based off of system 1, instinct and intuition. So that's like why I think things that are easy to use are intuitive, right? Versus like rational thinking, which takes kind of slow. This is a little slow, a little lazy, sometimes can be indecisive. There is a link to a video on this book, Thinking Fast and Slow. I've heard it recommended more than once. So, and I think I went and I watched that. I'm like, yeah, okay. It's interesting. So yeah, that 5%, right, requires a cognitive load, right? When you're learning something new, when you're thinking about something that's deep and complex, this can impact your cognitive load. If you have a lot of things going on in your life, like your house has been flooded and you need to get repairs and you're doing all these other things outside of like class and stuff like that. That can impact your cognitive load, which just kind of, impacts pretty much everything. You can easily get overwhelmed. So yeah, cognitive load just basically refers to the total amount of information your working memory can handle. So sometimes I'll like say something like, hey, I need more RAM in my head, basically, for my brain. I need more RAM because my cognitive load is extensive. Okay. So we want to make sure that we don't impact users like that, right? We don't want to give them cognitive overload when basically, when we're overwhelmed, right? So we don't want to have too much stuff on the page. We do want to give them, so finding that balance between the stuff on the page versus giving the user options. Right? That's an important balance to create on web pages. And if they're overwhelmed, they're going to leave, right? They're not going to have a good experience, and they're not going to come back, right? We want to make sure that we don't do that. So here we go. Ugh. What do you guys think about this web page? Feels old. It does feel old. Yeah. Because that drop down, that search bar. Yeah. But like, look at all the buttons and all the links and all the things that you could click on, right? It's too much. It's a little ambiguous. It's, hard to find stuff. So, yuck, right? I'm gonna keep things simple. This has a fair amount of information on it, but it's clean, right? It's ordered. It's consistent. We don't have these big buttons that are of different colors and like a big sidebar that has weird navigation on it, right? We have like a search bar. Pretty much, this is really nice and simple, right? Make it intuitive. So here's Yumly. You can search for recipes. You can say, hey, I don't want to have these items. Like, let's say you're allergic to bananas. That would suck. Or bacon. Oh, maybe you have a religious reason for not eating bacon. You can say, hey, I don't want bacon and I don't want bananas. And then you can search for a recipe and it'll find it for you. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward and pretty intuitive. Right? Make it obvious what is clickable. Big button. Shop now. Let's go shop now. Click, click, click. So call to actions are important. Negative space helps things breathe. We've seen this in print, right? We get this in web design as well. Colorful images that speak to what your customer is looking for. Obviously, this was Halloween when this was captured. And then get ready for Fright Night. So that's like an effective headline, right? So what we see right below this is there's some more images related to Halloween stuff, right? Okay. Trends. Just like any other design industry, be it fashion, interior decoration, print, right? Everything goes through trends. So let's take a look at some now, right? Big on negative space, right? Keeping that breathing space open. Space between elements kind of give people a chance to, in a way, rest their eyes, right? Large images and videos. Sliders still exist, but we're seeing kind of a trend of going away from sliders. So a big hero image is good. A lot of times sliders, people don't get to the second or third item in the slider before they have already moved away from the slider. So a lot of times that's why we find sliders are ineffective at this point. That would be like you've seen those banners and they have an image and then after a minute they slide off and there's another image there. That's a slider. Or it's also called a carousel. There's a number of different names for it, but that's what we're talking about, the sort of rotating banner image up at the top. So it never really, a lot of times users don't even get to the second or third slide. And if you have more than that, good luck, you know, so don't put anything important at the end. Right. All right. So yeah, the big trend right now is using a video or a hero image like this one. Right. Cool shapes. There's so many cool ways that we can do utilize clipping paths with CSS. It's amazing. You can actually like put a circle and have text flow around it. You can like create little chevrons as header banners. Really neat. All kinds of cool things that you can do with clipping paths. And I have a website if you want to explore that, but it's all in code. So, but still, just kind of knowing that that's out there and available to you, then that's just a cool thing to know. All right. So cool shapes, right? We want great typography. Right, this script typography is probably part of this image, but still, you know, it's nice. This is like clean locations and menus. I'd probably want some space between locations and menus, but other than that, you know, this is very well laid out. I'm not fond of this Let's Feast typography. I'm not fond of that font at all, but everything else is nice and clean. All right. No, just Google Fonts. But Google Fonts has like a ton of different kinds of fonts. So just Google Fonts because they are licensed for the web. So manipulated images, right? Things that are kind of like this blur stuff, you know, colorized, stylized. That's like a big trend right now. Things like this. Things that are simple color schemes, although your style tile is going to require 5 colors. You're probably not going to use that many colors in your actual design. You know, probably more like 3, 4 maybe, you know, and maybe some tints or some shades of a color. You know, that's the simple color scheme is very, very much what's on trend right now. There is a link to, I think, something, maybe even this page, I don't know. All right. Asymmetrical design. So we don't have to do things, you know, straight down the middle, right? We don't have to do things that are in 3s that are 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. It's nice. I like it. But we don't have to, right? So asymmetrical design is a current trend in web development, web design. Retro stuff. So you can see like this stroke here. That kind of looks sort of, I don't know, what, 60s, 70-ish. Retro colors, all kind of that way. Here we have a, well, not exactly symmetrical. It is split, a little bit off, which is fine. That's also a big thing right now. You can see that in tons of websites. Here we've kind of got an image and some text and so on and so forth. So just say no to the following. Annoying overlays. How many times have you gone to a website and you're on there and you're reading something and this overlay pops up? Like, I was in the middle of reading something. Why are you bothering me with this? Right? Marie Forleo, who is like a business guru, entrepreneur, she does this on her website all the time, and it just annoys me. And it's most especially because like, I'm like, yes, I'll accept cookies. You should know that I'm already on this site. You don't have to show me this overlay anymore. I go to a new page, I get the same damn overlay. Oh, it's like, I'm trying to get stuff done here. Leave me alone. I've already signed up to your newsletter. I don't need to sign up to it again. You know, so things like that are annoying to users. Logos in the wrong color. You know, that's say no to this. You want, you know, brands are brands for a reason, right? They make design choices for themselves to make themselves more recognizable. So you know, kind of like the credit card thing, right? Right. So no to annoying overlays, no to logos in the wrong color, and hamburger button, the hamburger menu on the desktop. You do not need that there. If you have access to all of these links for your navigation, this does not need to be there. This would only be available in a tablet where not all of the options for the navigation are visible. Yeah, basically, that's it. So no hamburger menu on the desktop version. And so this is apartment therapy, but it looks like, because I went and I looked at apartment therapy, it looks like they took Tiziana's advice with a redesign. Oh, let me go back to that just a sec here. Well, actually, if you go to apartmenttherapy.com, then you'll see that. Okay, crazy cursors. See this dot? That's the cursor for this website. I mean, you know, it's a beautiful site, but you know what? It's a lot easier just to have this mouse, right? Because I know exactly where I'm clicking. If I had that large round thing over here, I could, you know, she's got some interaction. I went and I looked at this. She's got some interaction which makes me see that work is being clicked, but it's just as easy if I just mouse over it with a regular cursor and click on work. So don't confuse your users, because at this point they're like, where's my mouse, right? Where did it go? It's right here. No, don't do that. Do not do that. All right. Crazy mouse follows. If you go to this website, and I have the link for this website in here, this eyeball follows you around. Follows your mouse around. It's just like, look. It's like just the eyeball just like goes side to side. It's like, which, you know, if you're doing something like, you know, fun, and you're not like doing wedding photos, why do you have this eyeball here for wedding photos? It makes no sense. So, yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about responsive design. You're not going to be required to do responsive design. Responsive design is going to be an extra credit thing. So this is kind of what you'll see with responsive design. You have big, beautiful monitors like this one. You've got laptop monitors. You've got tablets. You've got phones. And they all need to basically have the same information fit into different spaces. And that's part of the beautiful challenge of web design nowadays. So mobile design considerations, right? We want to think about these sorts of things. Multiple devices, many different types of devices that are available. I just mentioned them. Environment of use. I mentioned the whole thing about like you're out in the daytime, the sun is shining and I'm looking at my phone screen and I can't really see it. So making sure that things have a fairly high contrast ratio between text and background can be important for users when they're out and they're browsing their phones, because you don't know where they're going to look at their phones from, right? Input, you want to use like the right kinds of inputs. There's a bunch of different kinds of fields. So like text fields are not just text fields. There's email, there's password, there's phone, or actually I think it's tel now, number, all kinds of different sorts of inputs. and they can pull up different. So like when you use your phone and you use and you click into a number input field, it'll just give you the keypad because it knows that there's not anything other than numbers there, right? So that's a usability issue, right? Instead of having to kind of go to my regular keyboard, or like if I use the email input, if I click into an email text field and I start typing stuff, the email keyboard with the @ symbol shows up, right, on your phone. And so those can be important things to consider. You won't have to worry about that because we're not coding in this class, but again, just something to think about. Situation, I just mentioned being outside. Outside's a potential issue where things are not as readable or seeable, right? Oftentimes I've had to run like, okay, where's a tree? Oh, okay, now I can look at my phone. Or just turn away from the sun, or any number of things. And something else to consider when it comes to mobile design is how fast is the internet where you are, because this will vary. I live in Lakeside. Most of the time, I'm on a 5G connection, but there's a certain corner that I go around and there's no reception there, right? And then like immediately following that, there's like a 3G. There's spots in Lakeside that are like still on LTE. It's nasty. So those are things that you want to consider when developing for the web. You don't want to make things that have a huge file size because those things will take time to download and to resolve, to render. Okay. Not much stuff. Simplify the layout. So this is not stuff. You want to try to kind of, when you're doing stuff for mobile, you want to simplify the layout. Generally, like a 1-column layout is what you'll get on mobile stuff. A tablet, you might like get a 2 or 3-column layout. Also, there's kind of the portrait versus landscape. Have you ever looked at your phone, looked at a website on phone, and you turned it, and it changes the layout a little bit?
I have my rotation lock.
You have your rotation lock.
I don't like when it
Well,
especially when you try to type something and it takes like 70% of the screen.
Yes. I agree with you on the keyboard issue on landscape, but yeah, that's part of that whole kind of responsive design. Oh, look, the width of this window is bigger. We can now change things and make it better or make it different. Okay, whenever you're doing stuff for mobile, you want to minimize the typing for the user as much as possible. You can use mobile specific things with media queries if you're familiar with CSS. You can use media queries for rendering specifically mobile things. And then it says reduce features and reduce scrolling. Yeah. All right. So here's YouTube on the desktop versus YouTube. I think this might be the mobile, yeah, as opposed to the app. I just use YouTube's app on my phone. But if I wanted to, I could use my browser, my Chrome browser, and go look at YouTube mobile version. Right, so you can see that we've kind of simplified things a lot. Right, there's going to be some scrolling over here, but that's okay. All right, here's BBC News as an example. All right, that sidebar is probably shoved all the way down to the bottom. This sidebar probably is shoved all the way down to the bottom. Right, here's Target. There's their mobile version. There's their menu. So you can see like this hamburger button. When you click on it, it becomes this menu. But if we go back to like the previous page, you can see they do have this hamburger button, shop all categories over here also, but Yeah. Still, the idea is like use the hamburger button to show us the menu. All right. So this is something that you can do if you want to become a better user interface designer. You can go to Daily UI and sign up for their design challenges and yeah, learn more about user interface just by pure experience.